And God said, Behold, I have given you every herb-bearing seed. To you it shall be for food. Genesis 1:29. Man did eat angels' food. He sent them meat to the full. Psalm 78:25. Everyday Manna with Lisa.
Hi everybody, and welcome to Everyday Manna. Today we are going to make a pork tenderloin with a blue cheese sauce. We're going to make a carrot and cheese casserole, and we're going to have new potatoes with a lemon sauce to go alongside this. It's going to be easy and delicious. We're actually going to get started on the carrot casserole because that takes the longest time to cook. I have a food processor here that I have just fitted with the chopping blade, the metal blade. And I'm just using a 1 pound bag of the little baby carrots. If you don't have these, you can use, regular carrots. Just peel them and cut them up, slice them or something, because we're actually going to chop them in the food processor because we want them to be kind of fine. So I'm just using a 1 pound bag of these. And I'm going to chop them. Now this is a little loud, so bear with me here. Sometimes you got to stop it and then kind of reshift them to get them down in there. We want to chop them till they're fine. Not mushy, but fine. So stop them ever so often and check them. Need a little more. Actually, I think I'm going to use the pulse button. You can also shred them if you want to, and I think that's good. It's okay if you have, a few little big chunks in there. That's okay. Now, let's get these in a saucepan. We're going to cook these for a few minutes. They don't take long to cook, obviously, because we've got them all chopped up. Okay, I'm going to add some water to this, just enough to cover it. We're going to bring it to a boil. Okay, just barely cover it and put it on high and bring it to a boil. I need to rinse the food processor out, and then we will get started on the rest of the ingredients for the carrot casserole. Alrighty, now all I did was just cover the pot and just rinse out the food processor. You don't need to wash it, you just need to rinse out the raw carrots. We are going to add, actually I think I'm going to dry it just a little bit. Be careful of that blade. So I'm going to pulse up some crackers. You can use whatever kind of cracker that you like. I just have a sleeve of like these buttery crackers. We're making a casserole. So you want to just put these in. If you don't have a food processor, you can put these in a Ziploc baggie and just beat them with a rolling pin or a meat mallet or something. Let your children do it. They would love to do that. That'd be fun for them. Just going to pulse these up till they're crumbs. Okay. Just takes a second. That's all you got to do to that. Going to add a couple of tablespoons of butter, some salt and some pepper, some cheddar cheese that I've cut into cubes. This is actually Monterey Jack and Colby, but you could use cheddar or any kind of cheese you like. It's fine. Pulse that to chop up the cheese. Comes together really easy. Okay. And then I have 2 eggs. that I'm going to lightly beat before I add them to the pan. Just lightly beat them before you add them, not the pan, but the bowl of the food processor. So easy to make. And I am going to add a little bit of milk. I'm going to start out with about half a cup. Okay, then we're going to just mix this all together. Let the food processor do the work for you. And that's it until we get our carrots washed and drained. Or not washed, but cooked and drained. They just need, because they're so fine, they need about 5 minutes at the most, just until they're tender. And then we'll drain these and add it to that mixture. All right, now our carrots are tender. I just poured the mixture that was in the food processor in a big working bowl, and I'm going to add the cooked carrots. I'm just going to drain them. Just going to add them to the mixture that we just made. You could add a little bit of cayenne pepper too if you wanted to. Give it a little bit of heat. Get all of these out. Okay, I'm going to show you a little trick the way I do it. If you don't have a strainer, this has very fine holes. I just pour the water out over the little thing and you catch all the rest of them. You don't want to waste them. All right, now we're going to mix this together. I have a little bit of extra milk if I think I'm going to need it. The heat from the carrots will help melt that butter more, and I don't think I'm going to need it. I only needed about half a cup of milk. This is one of those things that you can approximate. Then I'm going to pour it into a baking dish, just a casserole dish, and I'm going to spread it out. And that's it. Just bake that in the oven about 30 minutes. This would be a really good casserole for a potluck dinner, a spring Easter feast, or just any day of the week. It's really, really good. So let's get that in a 350-degree preheated oven for about 30 minutes. And those crackers, what will happen is the crackers will mix with the butter and they will become browned and crusty on top. The eggs will help to set it, and it kind of almost becomes like a spoon bread type consistency. So that's our casserole cooking. I'm just going to clean up, and when I come back, we're going to get started on the pork tenderloin with blue cheese sauce and our lemon potatoes. I'll be back in just a minute. Alrighty, now our carrot casserole is in the oven baking, and we are going to start on the pork tenderloin. Before we get started here, in this pot, I have some little small new potatoes. If you don't have these little small ones, you can use the bigger potatoes and just slice them if you want to. I would either use, these are Yukon Golds, I would use Yukon Gold or the red potatoes. If you use the Idaho russet baking potatoes, the traditional russet potatoes, they're going to fall apart. That's why a lot of times they just kind of crumble. For a dish where you want the potato to remain intact, it's better to use either a Yukon Gold or the red waxy potatoes, or you could even use the fingerling potatoes. Any of those would work. This is just some of the little small Yukon Golds. I covered them with cold water. I'm just going to bring those up to a simmer to let them be cooking. Now, on my plastic cutting board, I have 2 pork tenderloins. This is how it comes. It comes nestled together in the package with 2 of them in there. And I'm going to trim these up. Now, these are pretty good, but tenderloin, and you've seen me do this before, you see this little right here? That's the silver skin, and you really need to trim that off. What you need is just a thin knife like this. Go just slightly underneath that, and then hold it up and just trim the silver skin away. That will never break down and will never become tender. So really you just need to trim that off and discard it. It will have it on there unless you are fortunate enough to live near a butcher that will do this for you, but it's really not that difficult. You just want to get all of that silver skin off, and you will be able to tell what's the silver skin as opposed to like a little piece of fat. If you see any big pockets of fat, you can trim those off. Tenderloin typically does not have that. It's pretty lean. All right. There's a little more silver skin, so we want to trim that off. And then do the same thing with the other one. This is just a little membrane that'll come off with the silver skin. Okay, now just go underneath it with your knife, the point of a very sharp knife. Not cutting too far into the meat. You're going to get a little bit. You can't help but do that. But you don't want to get too much of it. Go just underneath there and pull it back as you trim. Tenderloins are wonderful for quick meals. This is the filet mignon of pork. That's what filet mignon comes from, is the tenderloin of the cow. Well, this is the equivalent of that with pork, but it's very inexpensive, very lean, and very, very tender, and very quick cooking. You can roast these. I roast these quite often for dinner and make different sauces on them. But from start to finish, these things will roast in 30 minutes total because they're so small. Just brown them on the stovetop and roast them in the oven at like 425, and they're done. They really do cook very, very quickly. Just going to discard all of that. Then what you want to do is trim this. I like to cut it in half. I'm going to trim it into medallions and then lay them out on my cutting board. And remember, I don't put raw meat on my board. Just put it out just like that. Get your skillet preheating. I like to turn them up on their side. And then what you're going to do is take some plastic wrap and lay over the tenderloin. You could also use, wax paper if you wanted. And then take a meat mallet and lightly pound these to make them thinner, because they don't need any more tenderizing. It just makes them thinner and a little bit wider. Whoops. Okay, you see the difference, how that works? That just makes them thinner. Now, I've got my skillet preheated. I'm going to add some oil. Just some vegetable oil is fine. And then I'm going to add some salt to these. Put that right there for me. And then I'm going to place them salted side down in a hot pan, and I'm going to let them brown. So easy and so quick and really so very good. If you find, this one did not need pounding. He was so thin, he's gonna cook quick. If you find that your pork chops are dry, you're probably overcooking them. And what I would suggest is using this cut of meat, the tenderloin. It is so much easier to work with, and it's basically foil proof. It's pretty hard to dry this out. So tender, it cooks so quick. I'm going to do the same thing on these. Just pound them out. Just a little bit. You don't want to beat them to death. If you don't want to do this step, you could use a pork loin chop, that's already done for you. You could also use the boneless loin chops if you wanted to. All right, I'm going to take a quick break, just clean up. I'm going to scoot these over and get these in there and flip them over, and when I come back, we will finish up the sauce for the potatoes and the pork. I'll be back in just a minute. All right, now I just drained the potatoes and I put them in this dish for a few minutes. I browned the pork chops on both sides and just took them out of the pan, and just gonna leave those alone for just a few minutes. I'm not going to wipe that out because that's a lot of flavor down in that pan, and there's not a lot of fat in there. I have some butter that I have about 3 tablespoons of butter that I'm gonna melt. We're gonna make a roux, because we're going to make a sauce to go on the pork. Come on, butter. It's being contrary today. You will need to have a whisk handy. Put it down, put your heat down on like medium, low. You don't want to burn the butter. Okay? As that's melting, I'm going to add in, that was 3 tablespoons of butter, and I'm going to add in an equal amount of flour, just all-purpose flour. And I'm going to whisk that together until the flour is completely absorbed by the melted butter. And I like to give it just a minute to kind of take on a golden color. You don't want to walk away from this. This will go from golden to black in a matter of seconds. So keep whisking and just let it, you'll see it absorbs. Now what this is going to do is thicken our sauce. Now this is a pale color sauce. This is the same as making gravy. The French term for this is a bechamel sauce. It's a white sauce. But the roux just thickens it up, and that's what this is. This is the basis for the milk gravies, like biscuits and gravy. This is the basis for that, or a gumbo, or a thickened type stew. Same thing. Now you see how it's turning from pale to golden? That's the flour and the butter taking on that hue, and that's what I'm wanting right there. Now, I am slowly going to add a little bit of milk. I've got a couple of cups. Don't add it all at once. Add a little bit. Stir it in there. If you add it all at once, it will clump up and it'll be very difficult to get the lumps out. That's the key to lump-free gravy, if you will. And once you get it started and you get all the little clumps. Now, I will have a few little bits of the pork in here, but there won't be any lumps of flour. Then you can add the rest of your milk and let it thicken. It'll take it about 30 seconds. I'm going to put my pot that I cooked my potatoes back on the heat. Let that go for just a second, keeping an eye on it. And we are going to saute in a stick of butter because we're making a sauce. We're going to saute some onions that I'm going to chop. Just a couple of tablespoons. You don't really want much onion, just a little bit to give it some flavor. Like half of a small onion will be fine. Don't need a lot. Just chop it up. A couple of tablespoons is good. Just add some flavor to it, and I'm going to put this straight in that pot with the butter, and I'm going to saute that. While that's going, I'm going to whisk my gravy. Turn the heat up just a little bit. I want that to thicken up just a little. Won't take it long, just a minute. Set this to the side. Now, I have some lemons that I'm going to roll on my board. This is a lemon sauce to go over our potatoes. I'm going to cut them in half, one of them, two of them actually, in half. Now, all right, let's get back to the gravy. You got to multitask here. If you can't multitask, then best to finish this first. You see, it came up to a little bit of a simmer, and those bubbles are going to thicken that up. And I've got 4 ounces of blue cheese crumbles that I'm going to stir in there. Turn it down to low, and I'm going to add all the pork and any juices that came out back into that dish. And I'm just going to let that warm back through. And that's pretty much done. Just kind of let that warm. Turn it down to low. We'll chop some parsley here in just a second. Now, check our onions. They're sauteing beautifully. I'm going to juice 2 lemons at the moment. Straight into my sauce. I love lemon. I love lemon anything, to be honest with you. I just love lemon. Okay, and I do not like the bottled lemon juice. I like fresh lemon juice. Let that go for just a second to let those onions cook. You don't want the flavor of the raw onion. Now, with your other lemon, I'm going to use the little citrus stripper. If you take it just has little tiny holes in it, okay? And then when you take it on the outside of a lemon, what you get are the little strippers. If you don't have one of these, you could use, the zester. I just wanted to show you the reamer like this that we always use. But I wanted to show you something a little bit different. So I wanted to show you the little citrus stripper. I don't really know the technical term for this thing, but it does a great job because it just gets the yellow part without getting the white, which can be a little bit bitter. And actually you've heard me say this before, the outside of the lemon has a lot of flavor, has all the oils in there. Okay, just leave that to the side. Let that go for just a second. I'm going to add just a pinch of salt because I did not salt those potatoes. Actually going to add just a tiny bit of salt on the potatoes. All those are just drained. And our casserole, our carrot casserole, which is a little warm, not smart of me, is done. And there's that. Our pork is done. Okay, so we can plate that up. Let's chop a little bit of parsley for flavor and for color. Just a little bit. Watch your onions. You can save this other lemon and use it for another purpose. Or you can slice it and put it over there to kind of indicate to people that it's a lemon flavored sauce. But the lemon zest will do the same thing. Remember how to chop herbs, one end of your knife on the board, and then just work through them. I'm going to add a little bit of this right in with my onions. Plate up the pork. Okay. Oh, this looks so good. All right, here you go. Now, just plate that up. Pour all that juice, and I would serve this with buttered noodles or rice would be fine, whichever you've got handy. Got lots of that wonderful blue cheese sauce. So there is your wonderful pork tenderloin with some parsley over top just to make it look beautiful and add a little bit of freshness to it. Our sauce is done. Pour this right over top of your potatoes. And they're warm and they're going to absorb that wonderful flavor. Top it with your citrus to let everybody know that's a lemon flavored dish. And there you go, a wonderful, wonderful meal from start to finish. Our delicious pork tenderloin with the blue cheese sauce, our lemon sauced new potatoes, and our carrot cheese casserole. I hope you enjoy these recipes, and I will see you next time on Everyday Manna.
Thank you for watching Everyday Manna with Lisa. This program is made possible by viewers like you. Your support is continually needed to keep Christian programming on the air. Please send your best financial gift to Living Faith Television in care of Everyday Manna, P.O. Box 1867, Abingdon, Virginia 24212.